Whiskey 0 Alpha November Tango. My dad and I, November 0 Alpha Hotel, wanted to tell you a little bit about our low band antennas. 160 sloper, but we're not using it right now.
The reason we're not using the sloper is that it does couple a little bit with the 160 meter vertical that we have in the backyard. So unless we really need it, this antenna is pretty much our backup for the low bands. Because we're talking about our low bands, we go back to our Glen Martin tower, because on there we have a 42-foot long 40-meter rotatable dipole that we really enjoy for the low bands for stateside propagation. It does a pretty good job on long DX, but for the most part we have our 40-80 meter vertical by Cushcraft to handle that part of our DXing. What you see here is our backyard. It's only about 110 feet long, but it contains all of our low band vertical antennas as well as our K9AY listening loop that's oriented to the east and to the west. Over in the corner of the yard is the MA8040V, and then panning back, you can see here is the MA160 vertical that's about 36 feet tall from the bottom to the top. The one antenna we use mostly for top band is the MA160 vertical by Cushcraft. Underneath we have 26 buried radials that average about 50 feet in length. We noticed that when we went from 16 to 22 radials, all of a sudden our SWR at the feed point raised from around 2.8 to around 3.4. We finally ended up with 26 buried radials and an impedance mismatch between the coax and the feed point of the antenna of around 5.3 to 1. Here's a picture of our Amadon W2FMI unbounced transformer. We found the match from B to E to be the best for providing the lowest SWR. That means the impedance of our antenna is closely matched to around 16 ohms. This is typically covered with a trash can to keep weather out of it. This is a good picture looking towards the northeast of the K9AY loop and the MA8040 vertical by Cushcraft. Notice they're very close together. This is why we use a KD9 Sugar Victor front end protector. You can find one of these units by contacting RadioWare at 800-457-7373. With a heavy duty relay, it's designed to shut off your receive antennas when transmitting. And trust me, you want that heavy duty relay if you do a lot of contesting. It's also built and used for an amplifier in case you like to go QRO. Of course, we only run 100 watts, but we still, because of the close proximity, feel that we need this device to keep our front end from getting blown out. Here's some information to contact RadioWare directly. This is the feed point of the MA4080V vertical antenna for 80 and 40 meters. You might notice that we have a choke on the feed point because this reduces the 80 meter resonant point to where we have a little bit broader bandwidth without affecting much in the way of the 40 meter resonant point. We also have ferrite beads attached to the coax to keep RF off the coax itself. One thing that you might notice is that we have an 8-foot ground rod again going into the ground along with about 50 buried radials connected for this antenna. It gets out quite well, and it's not uncommon for us to work long path into Europe or into Asia. We enjoy it quite a bit, and even though it's in the worst part of the backyard from appearances, it's actually the furthest antenna we have away from any home structures. The K9AY loop is the key to our low band listening. It picks up very well on 80, 160, as well as the broadcast bands, and it's a lot of fun to listen to. It's a single loop oriented going east to west, and as you can see from these photos, it's very close to being within a few feet of the MA8040V vertical. The relay box is connected about 2 feet above the ground on a 25-foot fiberglass mast that's attached to our old crabapple tree. For the low bands, this is the most important piece of equipment we have in the shack. The K9AY loop is a very simple device. With the loop, we can either listen to the east with the A switch, or going to the west, we just turn on the B switch. It also has a built-in preamp. It has made 160 a very workable band, as we worked over 500 stations in the recent 2010 160 meter ARRL contest. It's great to have, and it sure beats listening to the vertical. Going back to the KD9 Sugar Victor front end protector, it's great to have the ACC socket on the back of the Icon Pro 3 provide the 12 volts necessary to have the unit work. It also has leads coming out of the back going to the QSK for the radio, as well as the in and output for the receive antenna. What a great piece of equipment to have in the shack. You know, it's also very important that when you're on 160 is to have a tuner that can cover the entire band. The MA160 currently has about 15 kilohertz of a 3-to-1 bandwidth. With the auto tuner with the Pro 3, we get about 30 kilohertz, and with the Dentron 2000, we're able to cover the entire band. I love top band and would never be able to operate in the contest and go where the action is without this tuner.